10 for the Blue down the sideline, looking for Darius Clemens in the end zone. Touchdown. Touchdown, Michigan Blue. Alan Bowman to the freshman Darius Clemens, diving in the end zone. He's got it for 6. 13-6, a 35-yard strike.
All right, thank you very much. And there it is. Thanks to mgoblue.com. Doug Karsch on the call. There's your highlight, April the 2nd, the spring game. And fast forward here, June the 22nd, the second day of summer. And we will speak with the play-by-play man from Michigan football, Doug Karsch, in a moment. I want to welcome everyone in. How's everyone doing out there? This is Maize and Blue Reviews, Michigan football, basketball today. We're live weekdays at 1 o'clock talking about the latest in Michigan sports. And today, big time out there looking at the Michigan baseball coaching situation, and we'll see nothing yet. So we always take your feedback live during the show. There it is. Smash that like button. I like that. So there you go. And we take your calls. And before we get to Doug and connect with him in just one moment, I want to tell everybody, with it being so hot outside, cool down and think about sliding in and spending summertime with the Maize and Blue Review. So you can join us at Maize and Blue Review today. Go to michigan.rivals.com. Also, podcasts are everywhere you find podcasts. You rate, review, subscribe. Follow us on social, Facebook, Twitter, all of them. As you've heard me say a couple times now, I run the TikTok, and we are also on Clubhouse, where I start a little bit before the show on Clubhouse, and I stay a little bit after the show on Clubhouse. The party, keeps going. So let's get to our guest. We have him, the new voice of Michigan football, on the screen and wherever you're listening to the podcast. Doug Karsch joining us. Doug, the rumor is that you've been spending a lot of time out on the diamond. Now, is that thinking about maybe taking over for AJ Hinch if he opts out, or maybe throwing your hat in the ring for the open Michigan baseball job?
It's the second. Yeah, I think I'm going to apply for that. I figure I could do football play-by-play in the fall and turn around and coach the baseball team in the spring. No, I'm coaching my 15-year-old's team, and we have a lot of fun. And so my oldest, coached him through the time he was 15, and then he went out and played in high school, and now I was on the club team at the University of Michigan. And they made it to the College World Series this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is impressive. Most impressive part that you're down there and, point your bony finger out of the dugout and not get out of games or anything. Now, you mentioned it, you're the new voice of Michigan football. Congratulations. And coming up in 7.5 minutes, we're going to talk about that ascension to the throne. And for everybody that is listening on the pod, you probably know, but the details of all the segments are broken down, so you can fast forward. You can actually go back and do the same thing on YouTube, listen to any points that Doug is making here about calling Michigan games or anything he has to say about the team. So you have that going for you. But let's start with Michigan football. And you've called one game, the spring game. And I don't need to tell you, the optimism after last year is sky high. With everything that you know about the schedule and the returning team and everything, do you think the optimism is warranted?
Well, I think a lot of it is. I mean, they bring back so much of a really, really good offense. If they're going to have some success, it'll be a way they did last year. In that last year, they dominated up front on both sides of the ball. This year, I think it's asking a lot to dominate defensively. But, Ohio State went out and didn't have a great defense and still went 11-2 with a team that leaned heavily on great offense. I think Michigan should be better defensively than the Ohio State team was a year ago, and probably is going to lean on some really talented players in the secondary and at the linebacking core. But offensively, I think there's reason to be optimistic at every position. The most important position, they don't have just one. They have two guys that I think could win in this league. They've got a really good combination of running backs. Their wide receiver room is absolutely loaded. They've got Eric All, maybe the best tight end in the conference, coming back, and they should be good up front on the offensive line with a huge transfer to come in and fill a void. So, yeah, I think, and oh, by the way, both specialists are back, the kicker and punter. So, yeah, it's warranted. I mean, when you lose some members of the staff, you lose both coordinators. There might be some growing pains, but the schedule lays out nicely for them to maybe survive some of those growing pains in the early going and really get it up and running. I think, yeah, the optimism is warranted.
Yeah. So on defense, they lost a lot of playmakers. I even think about Hawkins, who made the big play at the end of the Nebraska game, and trying to figure out where they're going to get the sack production. Let me just go through the defense a little bit, and you tell me, because there's some guys that I'm pretty sure of, and I think that they can make plays, but right next to him, I'm not so sure. Mozzie Smith on the defensive line in the interior at defensive tackle. I'm pretty high on Mozzie Smith. Everybody is, but I'm not sure who's going to play next to him. I think that Mike Morris on the outside going to be pretty good. I don't know if he's going to be a Jabo or Hutchinson, but I'm not sure about the other side. Junior Colson, pretty good. It's a true freshman last year, but who's going to be next to him inside? Both corners look pretty good. They got at least some experience there. And Rod Moore, I know he was out for spring, but he played a lot, came up big late in that Penn State game. Do you see any answers, or, with your intel, somebody that you feel pretty good about, of all those different levels of guys that would be on the other side?
Well, I mean, Nakai Hill-Green is a player that the coaches just rave about, and I think it's a matter of time before he starts making, big plays on the defense. And I'll tell you, you mentioned a guy. The best story I got from any coach last year when I was doing sidelines came from Mike McDonald, who obviously has departed as defensive coordinator. But he told me a Rod Moore story, and it was here's a kid who has a true freshman. They said lap the field in terms of his iPad time. He watched so much film, he was like close to double anybody else on the iPad. And there was a play at the end of the Penn State game. Penn State had a formation that Michigan knew when they were in this formation, they liked to run a slant to Jahan Dotson. And early in the fourth quarter, Penn State had a critical 4th and 6, and they got into that formation, and they ran it on the side away from Rod Moore. And they came back on that 3rd and 3 on Penn State's last drive. They went in the same formation, but they flipped sides, and now they were on Rod Moore's side. Mike McDonald saw the formation and started screaming at Rod Moore, "Rod, it's a slant. It's coming your way." And Rod, very astutely, didn't look, just kind of waved his hand like, "Shut up, I know. Don't say anything." He didn't want him to give it away. So here's a true freshman who knew the play was coming, told his coach to settle down, I know it's coming, and stepped up and blew that play up. And not only did he blow it up, he knocked Dotson out of the game, where they couldn't bring him back in for the 4th down play, which Penn State then ended up throwing a fade to another receiver that didn't work. And Michigan got the ball back, and Penn State never got a chance. And it's that kind of play that was made in the film room by Rod Moore, who didn't come in as a 5-star, didn't come in as a freakish athlete, but turned himself into a great freshman player who's only going to get better. And I think him in the secondary as a leader is going to help. Talking to the defensive staff, they said Jamon Green took a big step forward, and he was making calls in the secondary like a safety would. So there were some examples of guys that are ready to step up. And I mean, Junior Colson's the obvious one. You mentioned Mike Morris. What will McGregor turn out to be along the defensive line? So it's not like there's not talent there. It's just inexperienced. Again, they've got some games to kind of get it together. And Jesse Minter comes in straight cut from the Mike McDonald school. Like, it's very similar. There's reason to be optimistic there, but I don't think we'll really know until they hit the field.
I was surprised at Moore. He didn't come in for spring, and he was able to do all of that. All right. Before I get to that, your ascension to the voice of Michigan football, you talk, I don't know if you're out there playing golf with Ward Manuel or anything else, but the talk of the possibility of scrapping the divisions, will he hold out because it would hurt Michigan. They have to play Ohio State not once but twice. It would give a team like, let's say, Michigan State a real break, who wouldn't have to play Ohio State every year, might only have to play them in the Big Ten title game. I mean, when those conversations, when you're sitting around with Ward, what's he say?
Haven't had that conversation directly with Ward, so I can't speak on his behalf.
I don't believe you.
I can make it up. I can pretend.
That was his first time.
I'm not sure what to make of this. I feel like there's a solution out there we haven't thought of. First of all, in the COVID year when they had the Big Ten schedule reveal, I love that. And I'm not quite sure why that can't be an annual thing where they try to balance out the schedules to a degree. It's hard to do because people want to make plans ahead of time, but it can be done. Just because we've never done it before, why not reveal the schedules every winter and do their best to balance them out for the coming season? You could even have placeholders where fans know what days they're going to be home and what days they're going to be on the road, but just don't tell them who they're playing until they can lock in Michigan, Ohio State for the last Saturday of November, or however they want to do it. But it's a complex formula, because what they really need to do is play everybody. You should play everybody to get an equitable champion. But without that possibility, I'm not quite sure that there is a equitable solution. The best I could think of is come out with the schedule as late as possible, which would probably be the winter before, and try and balance it out, because there's always going to be imbalances. And it's just, maybe they need to go to a semifinals finals format. Maybe they need to have 4 teams and have a Big Ten playoff. But
not bad. I'm for anything that gets away with, like, the 3 easy games that they have at the beginning. They can play 1 easy game all across college football. Get rid of those blowout games, and let's see some better games. And yeah, maybe semifinals, maybe a 12-team playoff would help with all that too. All right, a little bit late getting to it, but it's been a long time in coming. You taking over for Brandy. You spent a long time down there on the sideline, and but I can go back to 95. You were calling the Michigan spring game. Gary Moeller was the head coach. So, that wasn't your first spring game that you called here in just a couple months ago. This has been a long time going.
Yeah, I've probably done about 10 spring games over the years, which is, it's a lot different than when you're doing an actual game. I've done a couple of quick lane bowls with John Jansen, and so
those are big hits, I hear.
Well, don't act like you didn't listen. Huge Western Michigan Nevada game this year where
I was listening to see if you were going to say, here comes a big, it looks a little strange. He's a left-handed kicker.
No, I didn't say that, but John and I had some fun with it, and we've done games in studio in front of a big screen. Michigan Sports Television has set us up just to kind of get into some flow. But it's I'm not going to say that the job is easy, because it's not easy, but it's serving as the narrator. It's the narrator of the game. The play and what goes on in the field dictates what I have to say. And the star of the broadcast is the team. The co-star is John Jansen, and I'm the storyteller. And so, see ball, follow ball, and tell people where the ball is. And I don't want to make it any more complicated than it needs to be. I've got some great advice. I talked to Dan Dickerson, who does Tiger games, and we've known for a long time. And of course, the great Ken Cal. You and I and Kenny go way back, and Kenny had some good advice. And Ann Arborite Mike Tirico, had a long talk with him. And he made some recommendations. So there's a lot of support, and there's a lot of people that are really good at the job there to help guide me through this. But ultimately, the way I see it, let the team be the star, let John be the co-star, and I'll just tell the story, what's going on in front of me.
Well, I was listening with a critical ear in the stadium for the spring game, and I thought you guys did a heck of a job. So I was thinking, man, I'm going to have to be critical and rip Doug. But I didn't have to, because you guys, I would give you an A. So you did a good job. Will you, with all those stars that you talked about, here's my advice. I don't know if you should break out, here's a big old bowl of bean soup for a touchdown or anything. But do you have anything planned, or do you just think that that's going to happen organically, like some kind of Karschism?
So just the big old bowl of bean soup was a long story. It goes way back to Michigan baseball, and you and I were working together at the time, and we had a friend who used that line when we were playing an outdoor winter basketball game, and somebody had a pot of bean soup, and somebody made a shot. They said, get him a big old bowl of bean soup, and we all laughed. And I used it in the Michigan baseball game and started using it regularly, and it was kind of ridiculous. But it's just exactly what you said. I don't want to script anything. I think it'll sound scripted. John and I think it'll be something that happens together where you just kind of realize that like you said, the word's organic. Let it happen organically. I don't have to have a catchphrase. I don't have to plan anything out. But through the course of doing games together, John and I will hopefully have a lot of fun, but most importantly, provide an accurate description. And then all the rest of it, the sizzle and the extras will come over the course of time. I find that even when it comes to talk radio, and you know this, if you try to map out too much, people can tell. And so you don't really want to script anything. You have some ideas and outlines, but I'm just going to do my best to, provide an accurate description, and then we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens throughout the course of the season. The two questions I get asked the most, one of them's funny, which is, does that mean you get to go to all the games now? And I'm thinking, well, yeah, and I've been going to all the games for 16 years.
The other one is, are you going to miss being on the sideline and wearing a hat?
So
you're going to ride your bike to the stadium.
I still may ride my bike.
In the broadcast booth. Those would be my three that I guess for the other.
Well, the other one I get is, what's going to be your touchdown call? And I don't know yet. I still will ride my bike to the stadium, I think, quite a bit. I kind of liked being out in the elements and down on the field, but it was a terrible place to watch the whole game from. You'd miss a lot. You'd have to go back and watch it again later. But when you'd be out in the elements and it was raining sideways and 39 degrees, and guys from the press box would be texting me complaining about the soup is tepid, and somebody opened a window and we're all cold up here. I'd turn and make a gesture towards the press box, and people up there would laugh. But I guess now I'm that guy where I get to mess with the sideline reporter, whoever that may be when it's announced. But yeah, I will miss being down there. It was, what was really fun was right after the games, after big wins, getting to grab a player on the field that just made a big play and talk to them about it right there in the moment. It really felt like you were in the moment. And it was great. It was really, really a cool thing. You got a lot of emotion in that moment, and I will miss that.
Yeah, well, I'm going to miss it, and it would just come up out of nowhere. You'd watch the game, and all of a sudden, hey, there's Doug with his mic at the coin toss, or hey, there he is on the sideline. What a hat he's wearing. And
yeah. It was intimidating to go out there before the games with the coin toss, because there'd be a captains, there'd be a cameraman, and there'd be two officials, and I'd have to go running out. And of course, you're thinking about all the things that could go wrong. Don't trip. Is my fly open? All those kinds of things. But it was also fun to be in the middle of the field for that moment, and sometimes see tension between the teams, and sometimes see that two captains knew each other and went way back and had a little extra hug or conversation. And the most tense one ever was the Michigan-South Carolina game, the Jadeveon Clowney, where the kid from South Carolina called heads, and they said he called tails, and Michigan won the toss, and he started screaming, "It's not going to matter. It's not going to matter. We won that toss, but it's not going to matter." And he was all yelling at the Michigan kids, and Swearigan, DJ Swearigan, I think was his name. But yeah, it was, you get to see stuff. You get to see stuff like that. That was fun.
Wow, maybe that's why Jadeveon Clowney tore off Vincent Smith's head. He was mad at the coin toss. All right, Doug, I kept you longer than I said I was going to. I appreciate it. We're looking forward. It's not that far away. It'll probably go really fast. Yep. September 3 will be here before you know it. So good luck there. If it's anything like, you're supposed to make your most improvement from the spring game to the first game, or I don't know, maybe game 1, game 2, but if it's anything like the spring game, you guys will do great.
Isn't it Hawaii game 2, or I'm going to have to learn all those names?
Oh, yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah. Why couldn't they throw in BYU as well? I would have been really screwed.
Well, you got Olu Atimi, right? So, you're off and running.
Yeah, that's a good start. Get those ones right for sure.
All right, good job, Doug. Thanks for your time. Talk
All
with
right,
you.
Dennis, take care, bud.
All right, see ya. And there he is, Doug Karsch. Let's take him out with one of those
10 for the
play-by-plays.
blue down the sideline, looking for Darius Clemens in the end zone. Touchdown. Touchdown, Michigan Blue. Alan Bowman to the freshman Darius Clemens, diving in the end zone. He's got it for 6. 13-6, a 35-yard strike.
Yeah, there he is, Doug Karsch on the call. Yeah, I don't know if that was his best call. There were only, a couple touchdowns, and one was a fumble and a recovery, but that was the highlight of the spring game, Darius Clemens. I mean, it was a really nice throw, and it was a really nice catch, and that's the highlight. And just think, Doug could be calling the games. What's he in his early 50s? He could be calling the games until he's 70. So next couple decades. There's your voice of Michigan football. Joe on the feedback saying Doug is a phenomenal person for the Michigan job. Go Blue. Well, he's someone, there's nothing against anybody that's in any other spots that, did not grow up in Ann Arbor or whatever. But the one thing, Doug's been eyeing, that particular job. That would have been something that if you could talk to Doug when he was in first grade, probably would have said, yeah, I'd like to be the Michigan play-by-play guy. So, and, here it is. The dream came true. This feedback from SNBI shall not be infringed. He says, I think they're going to go 11-0 up to the Ohio State game this year if JJ is the starter. This offseason has been amazing, and I figured it would be. For most of the 21st century, the off seasons have been a grind. And it has been something where, a lot of frustration. You look back at the previous year and you're thinking, you try to get your positivity up for the next season. And it does happen. It happened a few times, even with a Harbaugh era, you'd think, oh, it's never going to happen. And then there you are thinking it's going to happen. And then it didn't. But then it did. This year and this offseason, it's part of it. The best part is them, they actually, beat Ohio State and then they validated it against Iowa. And the college football playoff against Georgia, it was fabulous from the championship, whatever, I don't know, was it 3 weeks or whatever, maybe more than that. So they actually played on New Year's Eve. The anticipation for that game, great. And then, the Orange Bowl really sucked, but it did feel like Michigan maxed out their talent. And of course, beating Ohio State, one of the great games ever. And then, actually being able to win the Big Ten was fantastic. Those were the best things. But then at some point you knew, like, hey, this is going to be different. You don't have to wake up every day in the summer and say, damn it, this isn't going. What's going on? Where's Michigan football? And here it is. So there's good reason. And then you do look at what they've got coming back and things look pretty good. And I think there'd be people that would look automatically and say, oh boy, here we go again. No, this is not here we go again. People who have not been looking at the Michigan schedule and saying, oh yeah, undefeated until there. A couple years ago, when, what was it? So it had been 2018. Michigan had, it looked like their best offensive line under Jim Harbaugh. They had the Ohio State game at home. Michigan had a returning quarterback in Shea Patterson. And then the biggest, I guess there were two other big factors. One is that Ohio State, even though they were just plugging in quarterback, they were going to another quarterback. Dwayne Haskins was done. They were bringing in, Justin Fields. And yeah, he was highly rated and everything. Ended up being great, but there was some uncertainty there with a new quarterback. And then the big uncertainty is freaking Urban Meyer. He was out. And so this Ryan Day is coming in. It was like, if Michigan's ever going to be able to turn this thing, it is going to be this year. And then it was like, oh, no, that's not happening. And you knew it right away. You knew it right away. And then the off season was pretty bitter, and nobody could say, oh yeah, I think they're going to beat Ohio State. And then you watched Ohio State play, and their defense was terrible, and Michigan wasn't half bad. And then everybody was picking Michigan, to win the game. So this one, it didn't come out of it didn't come out of thin air, and there were some people that were picking Michigan to beat Ohio State this year, but it gets you back where, if you're in a position where it can come down the season to just a couple plays, you really can't ask for anything more than that. I mean, you could ask to be Alabama and Georgia and bring in these, and maybe we're going to find out how the name, image, and likeness plays out. Maybe that is going to balance the equation a little bit. We'll have to see on that. Michigan, however you feel about it, we're going to find out if they're going to be in the mix for all this or not. But, save bringing in number one classes over and over and over again, like, the Tide. If you can get to a spot where you're just where it comes down to a couple games in a year where those games are coming down to a play or two, I would say that's all you can ask. And last year, the Nebraska came down to a play or two. It was actually Brad Hawkins making the play at the end. Certainly the Michigan State game came down to a play or two. It went against Michigan. The Penn State game came down to a play or two. And to everyone's surprise, even the people that were picking Michigan, the Ohio State game did not come down to a play or two. It came down to, 4 or 5 plays. But Michigan, they were going to need a 4-quarter effort, and they got it. We got some more feedback coming in. And for that, we go to Logan. Likes the show. Actually, he says, love the show. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Logan. SNBI. Love Cade and what he's done for Michigan. He just doesn't have that extra gear that's going to take us all the way. And I feel that JJ does. Yeah, JJ might. JJ's got a fabulous arm. He's got a rocket. And JJ can also move around in the pocket like nobody's business. So, I mean, yeah, he's exciting. And I think ultimately, by the time that Michigan plays Iowa, that, there's a good chance. Like, if I had to, you put the odds and everything, I think the heavy favorite to be the opening day starter on September the 3rd is going to be Cade McNamara. But it's going to be really, I think, even. And if I'm going to have to make a prediction, and this is nothing against anything. I mean, you want the best for what's going on here, but I would pick McCarthy to play at Iowa. So controversial when you have 2 quarterbacks and one, the floor for the position, and Michigan for years has talked about the expectations for the position. The expectation for the position for Michigan is a Big Ten championship. That's the floor. And Cade was able to do that. So, I always say, we'll see. We all know that we'll see. Antoine says, if you can, he wants to follow up with that Michigan insider to find out if Jim is going to really run that West Coast style of offense. It's the style I've always thought Michigan should play. That style of football would even suit Cade's check down mentality. And if JJ runs it, it will be even better. Yeah, Antoine, I think you're talking about Trevor McHugh, who is part of Maize and Blue Review staff writer. And yeah, he is, he's tuned in to Michigan's philosophy. And yeah, we'll do that. We'll take what you're saying and we will go with it. All right. Tomorrow, and I said this was going to be today, and it's something. It's always how you say things, and we know that. But I was going to come up, and then things worked with Doug, so we got him in. But we were going to come up with the 5 most important Wolverines, and I want everybody to think of the 5 most important Wolverines for 22. I had 5, and then I thought, is it the 5 best Wolverines? Is it the 5 most, is it important? Because sometimes, and I'm just going to give you, for instance, and it was what I was talking with, about with Doug, like Mozzie Smith, everybody knows he's the anchor. He's the leader at nose tackle for Michigan, Mozzie Smith, number 58. But next to him, isn't it going to be, so Mozzie's important, but is it going to be as important? So is it Chris Jenkins, whoever that's going to be next to Mozzie Smith? So I had 5, and then I started thinking about the guys that are next to him and how important those guys are going to be. It's going to be important because you have some givens, and then the importance of the guys that are going to be next to him, and if they can fill the voids and either match that floor that Michigan had last year or exceed it, maybe in some of the positions, like obviously rush edge is going to have to be more of a committee than just, I don't think you're going to have the kind of numbers that the dynamic duo had last year, but we'll go through that. The most important Wolverines for 22. CJ, we could argue or just make statements about the quarterback position, and I have no problem with doing that. People act like Cade's not going to improve from last year. LOL. Here's the thing, like when it comes to quarterback controversy and just quarterback play, that's the focus of every football team. And so, having 2 guys, and if you ask any Michigan football fan, like you might really believe that, JJ, is going to be the guy to take Michigan the furthest this year. And on the other side, you might root for Cade for whatever reason, like, hey, he won Michigan the Big Ten championship. But if you take a step back and everybody, it's like you're going to want what's best for the team. So you have an opinion on, how you think it plays out, how you think it should play out. And I don't know if that's the worst part, but part of it, when you're, backing one of the players, it's like you're not backing the other one, or you're knocking the other one. And I don't think people really mean that. They're just more of just casting their lot and what their opinion is and what's going to make Michigan, have their best season. So, the thing I like about, and we talked about this with Jim Scarcelli yesterday, is when you listen to both of those guys talk, and most teams get this, but not all of teams, man. These guys, when you hear either McCarthy or McNamara talk, you hear exactly what you want to hear. And is it likely that these guys are going to be, that the 2 of these guys are going to be here next year together, or the following year? No, probably not. So while they are, enjoy it, embrace the competition, and hopefully Harbaugh and company pick the right guy and play the carousel and insert the right guys, and it works out the best. And Michigan's able to realize their potential like they did last year. All right. We will be with you tomorrow at 1:00. More of your feedback, your calls, all of that. 5 most important Wolverines. Thanks to Doug Karsch for joining us. Everybody have a great rest of their day here on June the 22nd. Bye.